shining, see full of stars and they all in alignment. Call our homies and they all come through like where my girls at 702 like you ain't part of the crew, then who are you like? I'm out every night like a street light. I'm sending all the kids in the house now. Send the money straight to my account now. You ain't moving how I like you gotta bounce now. I'm stepping out the fakes like a bloodhound.
Yep.
You know I'm a queen with this. Got your boyfriend calling me Khaleesi. Lift deserve the throne. The game got the key to it. On Venus, little sis supposed to ring the bliss.
Woo!
One time, two times, killing
Yes, yeah, enough is enough. Somebody give that girl some water. She's hot. She's hot. That's my good friend Lish Speaks on Instagram. I'm going to put her information in the description, in the show notes. That's also my good friend Mark James. He's at Mark James 80. I don't know his Instagram handle, but it's going to be in the show notes, folks. How y'all doing, man? It's been a while. You have to forgive me. I got caught up in life. I had a baby. I didn't have the baby. Rashida had the baby, but I had a hand in making the baby. Yeah, but no excuses though, folks. I haven't been releasing these podcasts, so I apologize. And I've been meaning to get around to it. So recently, I got an email because I tracked the podcast like results through this third party vendor. Basically, they track how many downloads, and I checked, and I was looking like in like the last 30 days, I had like 600 downloads, some crazy number. I was like, wow, people are still listening to the podcast, like the older episodes. So I was like, I got to get back on this. And a lot of people have been asking me, not a lot of people, but people on YouTube every now and again and on Instagram, they're like, hey, what's up with the podcast, man? You got to put these back out. So, yeah, and I got a lot on my mind too. This is like good for me because I get to I'm in my head a lot. I'm thinking a lot. So when I find after I record these podcasts, like my brain kind of frees up a little bit. So it's good for me too. And then I'm glad people are getting some value from this. So anyway, if this is your first time here, I'm Jeff London. The podcast is about a lot of different things, but mainly it's what I call the 4 pillars of life. We talk about health, so everything under that umbrella, mostly fitness, reaching your fitness goals, diet, etc. Just how to be healthy, how to be more healthy. Then we have wealth. We talk about money because that's important, right? And mostly being an entrepreneur. I really, I'm into entrepreneurship. So we talk about that type of stuff, business. And then health, wealth, love, right? We talk about love, relationships. You need relationships. Like we're pack animals. We're tribal people. We are, that's in our brain. We operate well in tribes, relationships. And then happiness, man, just being happy. So I'm also a big self-help junkie. I'm always got a book in my ear. I'm always listening to a book or reading a book, anything, just trying to get a leg up, trying to get an advantage. So these are all the things we talk about. I'm gonna be bringing more guests on here, people who are more specialized, who know more than me in particular areas. So yeah, that's what the podcast is about. So anyway, folks, I want to talk to you. In January, we did the fitness competition. It's me and 7 of my friends, and we did. It was called the I call it the London Effect Fitness Challenge, but we use these apps. They're called we use these devices rather. It's called the MyZone heart rate monitor, right? And these heart rate monitors are connected to an app, and basically what it does, it measures your heart rate while you're working out. So and it gives you a color for each zone. So like the more intense you work out, like you'll be in a red zone. And then if you work out a little bit less intense, let's say you're going for like a fast jog, you'll get a color like a green color. You'll be in the green zone. And then let's say you're going for a fast walk, you'll be in the blue zone. And how it works is at the end of your workout, you get points. And each zone has a different amount of points. So if you're in that red zone where you're working out really hard for like, let's say 30 seconds, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're sprinting 30 seconds, balls to the wall. You'll get 5 points, every 5 seconds. But then let's say you're jogging for 30 seconds and you're in like a green zone, like a not as intense. You'll get maybe 2 points every 5 seconds. And then at the end of the workout, it will tell you how many points you got during that time frame. So if I worked out an hour, I'll look in the app and say, hey, Jeff, you got 200 points during this workout. So now the winner, this is during the entire month of January. There were some rules. You couldn't drink. That was really the only rule. You couldn't drink. And then alcohol. And at the end of the month, whoever has the most points wins. And the app is dope because you can see who's in first place, who's in second place, how many points they have. And then you can see when they're working out in real time. So I could go be in the gym and I could look at the app and I could see Kelvin's working out. But why this was so crazy. This is, by the way, this is the toughest thing I've ever done physically. Like I don't think I've ever pushed myself this hard physically that I can remember at least. And mentally too. Mentally, I don't know if this is the toughest thing, but it was tough. I had to push myself because these dudes are super competitive, super competitive, man. And these are all alpha male dudes. These aren't guys who are going to shy away from conflict. These are guys who like competing and want to be number one. So it was nuts. And what's crazy about it, all these guys are fit people, right? But it really doesn't matter because it's not about how fit you are in this particular competition because it's more about how intense you work out. So I work out a lot, but there could be another guy who's just more intense than I am, right? It doesn't really matter. So this app kind of evens the playing field, and you saw that because there were some people who are fitter than others, in theory, right? But there were other guys who would just work out way more intense. They could stay in a red zone higher. They could stay in a yellow zone longer than me, right? I ended up winning the competition, by the way. I mean, you should already know that. I ended up winning it, and it's in how it worked is the winner gets $700. If you lose, you have to give up $100. Winners get $700. So, but man, this thing was nuts. And during the process, right, during these 31 days, I learned a lot. There was a few things that I learned. I had some epiphanies during it, and I want to share with you. And pretty just to paint you a picture. I worked out twice a day. There's 31 days. I worked out 31 days straight. And out of those 31 days, I worked out twice a day for 26 of those days. And then I worked out 3 times a day for 5 of those days. Right? So that's how crazy it was. And I wasn't doing it because I wanted to. I did it because that's how I had to stay number one. And I was pretty much number one throughout the entire competition, except 3 times for like an hour. Like first Rich, my boy Rich, shout out to my boy Rich. Rich hit number one for a second, and then I had to cut him out of there for like an hour. Then Kel hit number one twice for like an hour. But other than that, I was number one the whole time. And it was pretty cool. It was a good experience. And so let's just tell you what I learned, right? Let's jump into it. The first thing I learned is that you think that you're going hard, right? You think you're like working out hard. And then you put this app on, and the app, it measures how hard you work out. So what you thought was hard, now you get to put it to the test. So I thought I used to work out pretty hard and intense. I'm like, yo, I gotta be in the red zone. And I wasn't working out as hard as I thought I was. So that was kind of like the first rule. But I think that transfers over to life, right? I think a lot of people think they're going hard and they're killing it, but they're really not going hard. They're really not killing it. And you could put that to the test. You know who does that? This coach named John Calipari, he coaches Kentucky. What he hooks his players up, freshmen, he hooks them up to a heart rate monitor their first time playing at Kentucky University when they get on campus. And then at the end of the practice or the scrimmage, he'll say, how hard did you think you were going? From a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning you went super intense. They would all say like 10, 9 or something like that. And then they would go look, and it would be like a 4. And it's just like it paints a good picture. And I see this all the time, man. I used to see this in college. When I was playing ball, some of my teammates, a lot of them thought they were better than what they really were. And as a result, they wouldn't work out. They wouldn't work on their game, because they thought they were so good already. So they didn't work out hard enough. They thought, like, how can you become great if you already think you're great? How can you work on something if you think you've already perfected it? So like that's why I always like to bring myself back down to zero, because or take the position of the student. That way I'm always getting better. I don't like to say, that used to be a question when I was interviewed a lot. People would always ask me, they were like, hey, what do you think you need to work on? Like, what are your flaws? Like, what do you need to improve? And I would always say, that's a tough question for me to answer because I honestly believe that I can improve in anything, everything. All right, everything I could get better. I haven't mastered anything. And one of my sayings, and I don't remember where I got this from, but I always say, I know nothing. Right? And when I think like that, I like thinking like that in within reason because it allows me to continue to keep growing and getting better. So that's rule number one. That was the first lesson that I pretty much learned. You think you're going hard, but you're not going that hard. And I think everybody should take a look at that. All right. So next one, tip number two, lesson number two is that your body can do a lot more than what you think. All right, you can your body can really do some interesting things, and your body will adjust. And I remember while I was doing this around like I was rolling the first few days. I was going twice a day working out, and then around like day 5 or 6, I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to sustain this. Like this is not sustainable. We and I wanted to what did I say I wanted to do? I wanted to do this is what I said. I said, guys, do you want to implement a mandatory rest day? Right, because I knew we couldn't do this, and everybody's like, "No, we're not implementing. No, you should rest when you want to rest." Da 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 da. These are alpha male guys, right? They're like, "No, no rest day. If you tired, you rest. You lose it, you lose it. You snooze, you lose." Right? Everybody said. I said, "All right." I was like, "Because I'll go. If you guys don't want to do a rest day, that's fine. I will go." So, and I kept going, right? And a lot of guys stopped going. A lot of guys started falling off. But long story short, my body started adapting. I'm telling you, on day 5, I was like, man, there's no way I'm gonna keep this up. But my body adjusted. I was in pain. There was at one point where I thought I was like, I think I fractured a bone in my foot. My foot, like my toe, was killing me. I was like, man, that's got to be something's broken in there. It was crazy, but the body will adjust. And, I've seen this in training over the years. I've come across people that are like, oh, my foot, my shoulder, oh, my back. I feel this little twinge. Over the years. I don't have this so much anymore, but I see it all the time, man. People just the slightest bit of being uncomfortability, and people go nuts. They're like, no, stop, this is too much. And you know what? Within reason, right? There's a little caveat. You got to know when. Sometimes you got to shut it down. Sometimes there's a difference. And I always say this because people ask me this. It's like, hey, I feel something in my back. Should I stop? Or I feel something in my knee. And I'm like, hey, there's a difference between like being a little uncomfortable. You feel some pressure and a sharp pain. Like a pain. We're like, hey, if I keep doing this, something bad's gonna happen, right? But then there's a pain where it's like, hey, there's going to be anytime you're changing your body, there's going to be a level of uncomfortability. When you're dieting, when you're trying to lose weight, you're going to be uncomfortable, right? When you're putting on muscle, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to get sore. I see people complain about that all the time. Like, oh, last time we worked out, I was so sore. I couldn't walk for 3 days. I want to scale it back a little bit. And I'm like, well, what do you think is going to, you haven't moved your body in it. You haven't done this in a year. Of course it's going to be sore, right? Well, like, deal with it. So, but you know what? I think that's just some people, right? Some people just they just get uncomfortable and they don't like being uncomfortable. I get it. I get it. I'm not cut from that cloth. I can't relate to that. All right. I like being uncomfortable. I like stretching myself. In fact, I don't like being super comfortable when it comes to certain things, right? That doesn't mean I sleep on a rock bed or I sleep on the floor because like, oh, the bed is too comfortable. No, not in that sense. But I don't like being in a rut, like a stride of comfortability. Like even with my workouts, I don't like working out the same way. I'm like, damn, I pretty much mastered this workout. I need to do something a little bit different, right? Like maybe I need to run sprints today, which I don't run often, right? Because I'm just too comfortable. And I think when you stay too comfortable, like nothing is steady, right? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. For example, like I'm comfortable with not being good at things, like being terrible at something for a period of time. Like for example, when I first started like doing group fitness, training people in front of a room, and the room full of people, and being terrible. Right? I remember when I first started doing yoga, I sucked. I looked, I was just stiff. I didn't know the flow. It was awkward. I remember I used to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing. I was the worst guy in the room, right? I was terrible, and that's uncomfortable. But I'm okay with that. And if you do that enough times, you start understanding that there's a process in learning new things. That's like there's a lot of power in sucking at something and sticking with it and getting good at it. And if you do that a few times, you understand there's a process. But what I think, what I've seen in my experience, people get in that space where they suck and they're like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. This is weird. I look stupid. I'm not doing it. It's uncomfortable and I'm out. And I think, you know, you got to get past that little part. All right. So, anyway, moving on to the next lesson, folks. Number 3, I believe this is lesson number 3. There's a lot of power in groups, man. Like that's why they say you're the average of the like 5 people you spend the most time with. That is a fact of life, man. I've seen this for a long time, but there's also there's a lot of power when you're around a particular group, right? So if you're around a bunch of people making a lot of money who are really super successful, you're going to start doing better in life. That you're going to start stretching yourself because you're around this group of like-minded people. Now, if you're around some low lives, if you're around some folks who don't really have much going on and they just squander their time, they're like drinking and just partying and doing and eating unhealthy and negative, it's inevitable. You can't fight that. You know what I remember in college? I'm from New York. I went to for my last 2 years of college. I went to Pennsylvania, school in Pennsylvania, and in New York. Well, some of our slang we say "son," like "Yo, son, what up, son? What up, son?" So I used to say "son" a lot back in the day, and you know what I noticed? A lot of the people on the team started saying "son" naturally, right? And it wasn't because they were trying to be like me. It's just that's the power of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And just like I started saying some words, we started speaking the same because I was with these guys every single day for 2 years. So that's a prime example of that. But with this fitness competition, it's like I ended up pushing myself harder than I ever pushed myself because I was involved in a group of people who were pushing themselves hard. And by default, I had to push myself so I could stay in the group and win. And I think everybody experienced that. And I spoke to all these guys, and you can speak. Maybe we'll do a podcast together, actually. But I'm pretty sure this is the most they've ever worked out and the hardest they've ever pushed themselves physically. All right. So, and then I started thinking about that. I'm like, what would happen if, I started hanging out with a group of multimillionaires all the time, right? Like, what would happen? You know what I mean? Or if what would happen if you started hanging out, or I started hanging out with people who were married all the time, like in healthy marriages? It just makes you think about what groups you want to belong to. So there's a lot of power in like-minded groups, man. So that's just one thing. I knew that, but it was just the fact that it was just more powerful in this 31 days while I was working out. Like I never worked out this hard. I've been working out since, for 14 years, and I never pushed myself like that. But it wasn't until I got involved with this group. All right, so that was lesson number 3. Let's go to number 4. I believe this is number 4. All right, there's a lot of power. I say this to a lot of clients that I coach online. Incentives. All right, incentives and losing. There's a really good book on it, on this. I think it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. The guy who wrote it, his name is Daniel Kahneman. I read this book a while ago, but basically they did like all these studies, and what they found is that, so let's take a step back, right? If you are trying to lose weight and you're like, yo, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, right? It's like, just cause I just need to lose this 20 pounds. I've had this 20 pounds for a long time, right? A lot of times that person doesn't lose 20 pounds, or somebody saying they want to get fit, they don't get fit. And then, I've come across people who call me and they'll hire me. They say, I'm getting married in 6 months. I've been overweight my entire life. I'd like to lose 40 pounds. And I've seen people lose that 40 pounds. I've seen other people say like, hey, My cousin's bachelorette party is in 3 months. We're going to Vegas. There's gonna be all these women are fit. I'm gonna be in a bathing suit. I don't want to be uncomfortable, and they lose the weight. I've I've know people who've made bets where they make a bet like this fitness competition and lose the weight. And I think I spoke about this in another podcast. You have to give yourself an incentive. In this case, the incentive was money, but it wasn't a lot of money to move everyone, right? And, 700 bucks, I mean, 700 bucks is, I mean, that's money nonetheless. I'm not too, obviously it meant something to me for me to win it. I'm not saying $700 is like your throwaway, but I'm saying for me, the incentive was more about winning. I wanted to beat them, right, and win the 700 bucks. So there's a lot of power in incentives, and I use this all the time. You have to be moving towards something, right, and it has to be very specific. So if you have a goal, you should reward yourself at the end of that goal. So if you say, hey man, I'm not going to eat junk for 2 weeks, at the end of that 2 weeks, you should reward yourself. Or you could say, hey man, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds. At the end of that 30 pounds, you could say, hey, I'm gonna take a trip out to Hawaii. I'm gonna give myself a trip somewhere. I'm gonna go to a beach because I lost this 30 pounds. There has to be an incentive. Now, on the flip side of that, there has to be something that you're moving away from, failure, right? This, for example, in this case, you know what they found in one of the studies in this book by Daniel Kahneman, that people will work harder when they're gonna lose something. Like I think it's called loss aversion. I forgot is that the term? I forget. But basically, it's like people will work harder if they know they're gonna lose $100. They're like, hey, if you don't do this, you're gonna lose $100, and people would be more motivated to do the thing, right? So, in this case, you would lose $100. So, in life, what I said, I play these little games in my head all the time, right? I think about my life. I think about, hey, if I don't do this thing, I give myself an incentive to do something, but then I think about what would happen if I don't do it. Like, hey, man, if you don't do this, you're going to have a bad life and you're going to end up looking like this guy that you never wanted to be like in life. So I'm always moving towards something, but I'm always running away from something. So that's just like a powerful tool. And you should set up, I should set up more of these things. That's what I realized after this 31 days. I'm like, man, I should do this a lot more. I should start putting out more incentives and running away from things. That way I can be more motivated to accomplish them. All right, next lesson, folks. Preparation. I spoke about this in the past too. I think, I think a big part of just getting in really good shape is being prepared. And I saw this when I was working corporate years ago, and I'd work 9 to 5, and then after work I'd come home, I'd snack, and then I would go to the gym. And what happened when I would go home to snack, I would be too hungry. I couldn't go straight to the gym after work. I would have to go home and stop and get something to eat, and I wouldn't leave the house. I go home, I'd eat, I feel good. I'm like, and I would miss the gym. So I did a couple things. I started working out in the morning, or I would start bringing like snacks, like a second lunch to work. That way I could just go straight to the gym. Or sometimes after work, I would leave my gym stuff home by mistake, and I have to go home get my gym stuff, and then, I wouldn't leave the house. So I started preparing myself more. I started preparing myself the day before. And then, now I'm older. More responsibilities. I got a family. I got to spend time with them. My time is limited. I work a lot, and a lot of people are always pulling for my time. It's like I have to be super prepared, like down to my coffee. Like my coffee's made the night before. I like to just roll out of bed and just jump into my clothes and get ready. And with this fitness competition, working out 2, 3 times a day for an hour, that's like, in essence, it's like almost 3 to 4 hours of my day, my waking hours. So I had to be super duper prepared, man. I couldn't slip at all. And as tired as I was, sometimes at night, I come home at 11 o'clock at night after a workout. I'd have to make sure I prepared everything for the next day, or I wouldn't work out. And a lot of times I was like hitting a quick workout before a 6 a.m. class. So I'd get to the gym at like 4:45, work out, jump in the shower, take like a quick shower in like 10 minutes, then go teach a class, and then go back and work out after the class, and then go see another. It was just nuts. And not only that, I also had to spend time with my daughter, with my girl, with my family. I had to balance all these things out while still competing, while still dominating this competition, right? So it was just a lot, but being prepared is what helped me. That's why I won, right? That's why I won. So the next one, which kind of kind of piggybacks on the last one, time management, right? Time management. Because I exchange time for money in many cases when I'm working one on one with clients. I got to be somewhere to make money. So time is extremely important. I get mad at my barber about this because sometimes he'll come like 15 minutes late and then he'll want to like eat a sandwich. And I'm like, dude, I don't have time for that, bro. Like literally time is money for me, man. And when I say 9:30, it's gotta be 9:30 or whatever time you agree to. We can't do this. I don't care what time. If it's 10, it's 10, but we got to start at 10. I can't burn 30 minutes, 15 minutes waiting for you, 15 minutes while you eat a sandwich. If not, I got to go find another barber. And so now we've come to an understanding. But time management it was huge during this time because I had a daughter. I had to babysit my daughter. I had these little small windows, right? I had to spend time with my girl. I had to go train clients, so I had small pockets where I could work out and do my thing and come back. And I had to get up early. It was just I had to manage my time, and it's probably the best I've ever managed my time in a long time. In a long time. So time management, something else that I learned. All right, a couple more, folks. Almost done. A couple more. The next one, this kind of like piggybacks on one of the earlier ones. We could all take it to another level. There's another gear. Everyone, I feel comfortable. I feel safe in saying this. We could all shift into another gear of intensity. Like we could shift into another gear of productivity. Like we could take it to a whole nother level. And I think in this case, it was obvious that I was able to shift into another level physically, mentally. My body got in better shape. I was just able to shift into it. But what I realized is that if I can set up the parameters, I could shift into another gear in all areas of life, right? I could shift my productivity into a whole nother level if I set up the parameters, right? Like, and this is a fitness competition that we did. It wasn't even that serious. It was like $100, but I was able to I probably shift into two different gears. I was probably driving in third gear. If any of you guys know about stick shift, I was driving in third gear and I took it to fifth gear. It's just like a faster gear for those of you who like, what are you talking about, man? Gears. Like, dude, I'd ride the train. I don't know about the cars. Oh man, I crack myself up. But yeah, so we can all take it to another level. And that's the biggest thing that I got from this competition. I'm like, man, I'm playing around in life. And I was like, well, why don't I do this with everything? Like, why don't I just do this all the time? And then I was like, hey man, well, you got to set up the parameters. You got to set up the parameters for this to operate at this high level. All right, of course it ebbs and flows, man. You can't, to go back to the car analogy, you can't be in fifth gear all the time. You'll burn the car out. There's times where you got to shift into third gear. You got to shift into first gear, second gear. You got to warm the car up. But I think we could all go a little faster, a little harder. All right. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, let's stop there. Let's stop there today. I feel like we did a lot of catching up. I don't know how long the podcast is at this point. But yeah, man, this was a really good experience. 31 days. It was during the whole month of January. I won. I beat them all. And it was good. It was good, man. And you know what happened? Now we're knocking on June, and I don't have that same level of intensity, right? I'm not going as hard as I was going in January. So this is a good reminder. Like I'm talking about this, but it's reminding me. I'm like, hey, all right, man, you're cruising again. You gotta step it up, my friend. You gotta step it up. All right, folks, do me a favor, man. Subscribe to the podcast Like the podcast, like my subscription, wherever you listen to it. If you're listening to it on SoundCloud or if you're listening to it on iTunes, like it and then share it. Share it with somebody and then drop me a comment, man. Let me say, hey, man, you're doing a good job, or give me topics you want to talk about. Or if you didn't like it, tell me you didn't like it. Say, man, I don't know. This was like all over the place, like let me know. All right. Guys, I'll see you in a week. How about we call it every Friday the new podcast release? All right, deal? Deal. Done. Listen, be safe, y'all. Peace.